we're going to continue looking at deployment. In particular, we're going to look at the Ant build script. You see it right now in my Emacs editor. Everything in red is documentation. It explains the points that I'm going to go over shortly. Let me just give you a feel for how much there is. It's about 2 screens full of documentation. The script begins in earnest at this line, and there's one line that you're going to have to edit, and that's the first line within the script. And we'll look at that momentarily. To begin, however, I'd like to do a demo. Let me open up my bash shell, and I'm in a working directory. Any directory will do, and I want to show you what's there. So as you can see, there's build.xml, the default name in Ant for an Ant script. We can verify that we have Ant by doing ant -version, and you can see I'm using 1.9.6, so you might check to see if you have Ant installed already. If not, just Google Apache Ant. You'll hit the home page and you'll see the installation is straightforward. Now let me clear and go back once more to show you what we have. We have the build script, build.xml, and then a source subdirectory. Let me show you what's in there. Those are the 3 pieces in the first application: convert.jsp, input.html, and web.xml. To confirm that this is not yet deployed, let me show you Tomcat. It's in my home directory, Tomcat 8 web apps. And you can see right now there's not much there. This is all of the stuff that comes when you install Tomcat. So I've removed everything that I'd already put in there. Now what I'm going to do is a deploy. So let me clear the screen just so it's easier to see. I'm going to type the following: ant -D. That's a command line argument. More about that in a bit. war.name equals. Now I need to give the name of the war file. Any name will do, but of course I need to remember it, and I don't want to duplicate a name already there unless I'm trying to overwrite an application. So I'm going to pick temp, and then I'm going to say deploy. Hit return. You can see there's a screen full of information. Basically, here's what's happened. Let me clear. You can see now to the left, there's a build subdirectory. So everything from source has been copied over to the build subdirectory, but put in the right places, you might say. And then everything has been packaged into temp.war. So let me show you the contents of temp.war. jar tvf temp.war. So as you can see, if you go down to about the middle, the web.xml has been moved into webinf. The convert.jsp and the input.html are in the top level. Everything is pretty much good to go. To confirm, I'm going to open up my browser. I had been testing before, but just to make sure, let me get temp, which is what we just deployed. And you can see it's there, 123.4. Hit return. So it's working as expected. If we go back to the command line prompt, go and look again at the Tomcat 8 web apps directory, you can see that temp.war is there. Notice, by the way, that there's also a subdirectory called temp. What Tomcat does by default, we could turn this off, but I'm going to leave it on, is Tomcat opens the war file and basically empties its contents into a subdirectory with the same name. Temp.war becomes temp. Foo.war would become foo, and so forth. This is described in Java as unwarring the war file. In other words, emptying the contents. To undeploy the application, we simply remove temp.war. So that's no big deal. I'm just going to do remove temp.war. That will automatically remove the temp subdirectory. So I don't have to remove that manually. You can see that both temp.war and the temp subdirectory have been removed. To redeploy, all you would do is redeploy the file. You would do an automatic overwrite. So I've now deployed it. I can simply redeploy it again and again and again and so on. So if I want to make any changes, I can redeploy. I strongly recommend that that's the way to redeploy. Redeploy the whole thing. You could go in and tweak something in that temp subdirectory, but redeploying is safer. Let me wrap up by returning to my Emacs editor and talking about what you need to change. So you can see inside the Ant build script, beyond the documentation, there's the project element. And then you see this property. The name of it is tomcat.home. What you need to do is adjust the value. On this machine, Tomcat is installed in users/martinkalin/tomcat8. On other machines, I have Tomcat installed in other places, so I need to edit this, and you need to edit this as well. Even if you're on a Windows machine, by the way, you can use the forward slashes because Ant understands the forward slashes. You don't need to worry about backslashes. So reset this, save the file, and you should be good to go. Now let me go back to the command line prompt and clear the screen just so it's easier to read. There are some other commands you can do with my Ant build script. If you just type Ant, what you get in effect is a very quick tutorial about how to use it. So this will remind you, for example, how to do the deploy. Ant deploy -d war name equals. The deploy can come first, as you see here, but it also can come at the end. You can do Ant clean. So let me show you the result of that. This eliminates the build subdirectory. And you can also do Ant compile if all you're trying to do is make sure that something compiles. Let me make one further point. What my Ant script does is basically copies the contents of the source directory into a build directory, so it doesn't change anything in source. That's deliberate. Nothing is ever changed there. You're going to put your things in source, and then I'm going to build a build directory with those same things and build and put them all in the right places. This is really our first look at the Ant script. As we get into more detailed examples, I'll go over it again, I'll remind you of how I used it, and I'll repeat it often. I use it all the time now. It's very convenient. If I'm not using an IDE, I find this is a nice, quick way to deploy to Tomcat. You could also adjust it to deploy to Jetty because deployment is essentially the same.